Hello guys, this is Ark and this is the patch 13.19 notes. Um, so this is the world's patch, so it is one of the most important patches of the year, um, you know, alongside preseason patches, etc. Um, Really quickly, the nerfs to Wazir, Briar, LeBlanc, Rek'Sai, Renekton, and Zeri. Buffs to Galio, Gangplank, Jean, Lee Sin, Lissandra, Nunu, Pike, Syndra, and Twitch. So, from what I can tell, the nerfs are for Briar for solo queue since she will not be available for Worlds. The nerf to LeBlanc is probably for Worlds, same for Renekton, same for Zeri, same for Azir. Um, the Rek'Sai nerf is for solo queue mostly, like higher tier solo queue. And the buffs, Galio, GP, Jin, pretty sure that all these buffs are for Worlds specifically. Apparently Riot wants to have more Gangplank, more Lee Sin, obviously. Maybe not Nunu, but pretty much everything else is for Worlds. Static Civ is also getting a change, so LeBlanc get nerf, Civ getting a change is gonna be interesting. So let's just get right on top of it. Azir, Q cooldown increased, Q 12 to 6 seconds to 14 to 6 seconds. So this is a trend for Azir. Ever since the beginning of the year, they started to nerf his early game, his early laning phase specifically, by doing some mana nerfs, etc. Then they buffed his W, made him max W now, and they brought back some of the cooldown to Q, but now it's up again. Um, I'm not sure if this is a big change. I mean, since you max Q, it obviously is because it's 2 seconds at the early game. Maybe now, if there are like situations where you need your Q more often, maybe then you can go for a Q max build instead of a W max build. There is definitely situations that this can be happening. Um, but overall, I expect Azir to take quite a hit with this change. But I'm pretty sure that the pro players will just adapt to it and nothing will really change with Azir. Azir will stay in pro play, but it will not be just as blind pickable anymore as it was. Briar, oh my, oh, what is this? Oh God, am I reading all of this? Yikes. So, base stats, attack speed growth, 2.5% to 2.3%, Q, head rush, logic update, okay, whatever. W, blood frenzy, okay. They added a fury bar to show the duration of blood frenzy, that's great. Something, something, W, snack attack, healing goes down against minions and monsters also goes down. Um, Damage against minions and monsters also goes down. Uh, something about critical strike. Um, okay. E, chilling scream, bug fix. R, certain death. Okay, so from what I understand, most of these are quality of life slash bug fixes, apart from a small nerf to her attack speed growth and her W against minions and monsters, so that's fine, I guess. Galio, ult cooldown 200 seconds to 160 to 180 to 140, so minus 20 seconds from Galio's R are saved off. It might seem small, but it can be really strong, really powerful, because if you're able to get an ulti off like 20 seconds faster and be able to create a play 20 seconds faster, it can, make or break certain stuff. Um, so, is this enough to make Galio come back? Probably not as a like blind pick. It's like Galio will obviously be some sort of counter pick or some sort of puzzle piece. Like for example, if you have a Camille in the top lane, now you can play Galio in the mid lane or support and try to work with that. This might incentivize players to and teams to go more for like a Camille Galio comp or something like that, like Jarvan Galio, for example. Um, I'm not I'm not expecting Galio to be very different in terms of how he works, despite of how strong this buff is. But I am expecting to see him being picked more, exactly because of his synergy with like other strong picks right now, like Javan and Camille. Gangplank, our Cannon Barrage, minus 10 seconds from his ult cooldown, and upgrade Death's Daughter slow 60% for 1 second to 75% for 1 second. That's insane. Upgrade Raise Morale movement speed 30% for 2 seconds to 40% to 2 seconds. So um, Gangplank is getting a big buff to his ultimate. First of all, he gets 10 seconds off of his cooldown, which same as Galio's case. This can be really good. Now imagine like a Gangplank with Galio on the same team, and now you can make an ulti combos be like 10 to 15 seconds faster now. Which means the opponents have fewer time to counterplay that. So apart from that, though, the upgrades are massive. In fact, um, the Death's Daughter slow is the one with it's the first one you get, right? It's the first one you get, or is it the second one you get? The first one you get, I think, is the more damage, right? And but I think that's for solo queue though. For pro play, I think it's the slow slash movement speed buff, right? So if you get this first, now the slow can be very crippling. Like the 60% slow before was quite strong, but the 75% is massive now. And of course, the 30% to 40% movement speed for allies is massive as well. Um, it does not really change his laning phase, but it changes his impact on the map. And Gangplank for pro play especially, that is what he's picked for in the early game. Early to mid game, I should say. Um, his impact with his ultimate is a thing that, if used correctly, it can be really great for pro play. And right now, it was fine, but not necessarily something overpowered. But I think now it will definitely incentivize people to actually go for this. And I think we will definitely see Gangplank, and because of this, we will probably also see Galio in pro play and things like global team compositions, maybe Galio GP or TF GP, TF Camille, um, all this like we could even potentially see something like Galio top or like Galio mid, Gangplank top, or maybe like a TF mid with a Galio support. There are so many things you can do now. I think it's really interesting. I think this is I don't want to say it's a good change, um, but it's a change that will not be as obnoxious to play against, because they're not buffing his true damage, for example, or his like critical strike damage or his barrels cooldown. They're increasing like most his pro play aspect, so to speak. So that's fine, I guess. Jin R damage increased. Okay, so he gets like, what's this, like 20, like 15% more? Is that 15% more? Or wait, no, it's 25% more, right? roughly 25% more damage on his base damage on his ultimate. Um, Jin's ultimate is like it might not seem big, but first of all, this is like the minimum damage increase, so the maximum damage increases even more. And considering that this is per shot, if you add all of them together, then you can have like a big boost in damage. So if like again in pro play, but even in solo queue, if like there's a lot of crowd control on a target and you can land most of your ultimate shots, and especially the last one, this can definitely result into you securing a kill that you otherwise would not. So this is great. This is a great change. Again, it does not change his laning phase that much. Of course, there are like more situations where there is like lethal lethal situations that were not there before, and that's great. But they're not buffing his W, root duration, for example, or his Q, which means that his laning phase is not really obnoxious or more obnoxious than it was before. It's just those little situations where with your ult you can now find a kill that you otherwise would not. So that's pretty great. So we come to LeBlanc. Oh my goodness, here we go again. Oh my god, what is this? Attack speed ratio 0.625 to 0.4. Oh my god, this is insane. This is actually insane. Wow. Wow. For people who do not know what attack speed ratio is, because I know there are a lot of people who do not know what this is. So every champion has the attack speed ratio stat, right? And most of them are between like 0.58 to 0.69, I think, somewhere between those numbers. Um, the only exceptions are Senna, Graves, I think someone else as well. Senna, Graves, and I cannot remember the other one, but I'm pretty sure there's another one, but that's besides the point. So attack speed ratio is is a stat that defines how effective attack speed is when you build it on champions. So for example, Vayne I think has 0.69 attack speed ratio, right? And Caitlyn has 0.58, I think. If you buy static sieve, for example, on Vayne and static sieve on Caitlyn, even though the item gives like let's say 30% attack speed, right? Vayne will get more attack speed from the item than Caitlyn does. So for example, Vayne will get roughly 0.21% and it will go from 0.69 to 0.90, whereas Caitlyn will get like 0.18. So from 0.58 will go to 0.76. Um, so basically, the attack speed ratio says how much attack speed you actually get from items and runes. And now with this change here, this means that building attack speed on LeBlanc is very, very bad. It is terrible building attack speed on LeBlanc. Like, for example, go on Graves and build attack speed items on Graves. You'll see that his attack speed doesn't go up by a lot. Like, at best, you will go to like 1.1% or not percent, but 1.1 attack speed if you build like a full attack speed build. And this is something similar. So with this change, Riot says that, you know what, if you want to build attack speed stuff on LeBlanc, that's great. You will not be attacking quickly at all with LeBlanc. That's what Riot says. Like the starting attack speed is the same as before, but now you cannot really increase LeBlanc's attack speed with items. So is this enough to make people stop building static sieve? I think it is. I actually think it is because it's not necessarily uh, the fact that LeBlanc can clear minions quickly with static sieve, or even like deal damage with it overall. It's the fact that she can W in and weave autos with static sieve, and with the extra attack damage on the item, the critical strike chance, and the attack speed, she can go W, land a chain with Q, hold you in place for like, I don't know, 2 seconds, 2.5 seconds, or not just hold you in place, but generally be into her auto attack range. So during that whole time, she can basically cast W, and for the 4 seconds that she has to, reactivate her W to go back, she can hit like 3, 4, 5, even 6 auto attacks once she builds static sieve. And now this is something that she will not be able to do. She would only be able to do like 4 to 5 auto attacks at best. And because of this, I think this is a really, really good change to make people disincentivized from building static sieve, at least for the auto attacks part. So I think that is great. To compensate for this, they gave her more attack speed growth so that this does not cripple her quote unquote base attack speed. She also loses a 0.8 attack damage growth for the same reason as before. She also loses 30 mana per level, which is a bit questionable, I think, but it's fine. So her attack speed ratio and AD growth and mana generation growth are all going down. So now she has less mana, less AD, less attack speed overall. But she gets compensation buffs in terms of 5 AP ratio to her W and 5 AP ratio to her E. So it now incentivizes people to build LeBlanc more AP heavy. In fact, if we go before the times of static sieve LeBlanc to her pure AP builds like Luden Secco, etc., uh, in those days, these things here do not really matter. I guess the attack damage growth can matter in some very rare cases. Um, but overall, apart from like maybe the mana growth, which I mean you can manage your mana, so it shouldn't really be a problem. Um, Now you technically get 5% more AP on your W and 5% more on your initial cast of E. Which means that overall, if you land your entire combo, you get a 10% AP extra damage on your combo. With let's say with a Luden Secco, which is 90 AP, I think, and an Adaptive Force Rune, which is roughly 100 AP, you get an extra 10 damage on your combo. Um, and that is with just a Luden Secco, or even before the Luden Secco, because you'll be having like a Dora's Ring and like a proc from like Absolute Focus and whatnot. So overall, I'm not sure if this moves LeBlanc out of the meta. It just makes LeBlanc disincentivized from building static sieve, which is perfectly fine in my opinion. Personally, I never liked the build, and I know people consider it strong, and a lot of people play it, and like it's a permaban thing. But personally, at least for pro play, I never saw the appeal of the build, and I always thought it was not as good as it was supposed to be. But it is what it is. Listen, buffs, base armor 34 to 36, that's great. A W Iron Wheel, lifesteal spell vamp 5 to 27% to 10 to 26%. and E Tempest magic damage 35 to 155 to 35 to 135. So Lee Sin gets first of all 2 base armor, which means that his jungle clears will now be slightly healthier, and he will also be a bit tankier in lane if he decides to play as a laner, which are all, I guess, fine. Um, they nerf his E damage, his E base damage by uh, 5 per rank. I mean, I think that's more so that Lee Sin will not come back into as a laner, so that his wave clear will now be not as good because they buffed his W, and his W buff, in my opinion, I think is a massive buff because W is a skill you max second, right? And I think in some cases people max it last, um, but that's a different thing. Let's say you max W second, right? So until level 7, you get, instead of 5% lifesteal and Omnivamp from W, you get 10%, so double that. So Lee Sin basically gets double his healing in the early game until like level 7, and even at level 8 and 9, etc., and 10, you're still getting more. And in my opinion, I think this is a massive, massive, massive boost to Lee Sin, because this means that, especially for jungle, he now has extremely healthy clears, which means more invades, more early game contests, um, etc., etc. I think you get the point. It's obvious that Worlds is coming. Riot wants Lee Sin to be picked by players. Is this enough to make Lee Sin be picked more? And at Worlds, I'm 100% yes. 100% yes. I think Lee Sin was quite viable even without this buffs. But this even incentivizes more junglers and even laners to pick up Lee Sin, and I'm pretty sure we will see Lee Sin, you know, for sure at Worlds. Uh, will this be like a like perma pick and ban? I'm not sure. Um, I think that Lee Sin will be picked by junglers um, who are either very confident in blind picking Lee Sin, which I mean most junglers are, um, or in like maybe blind pick situation. Okay, I'm gonna pick Lee Sin and you know do whatever else because Lee Sin generally is quite flexible anyway. But in any case, I think this is a good change. Lissandra, W Ring of Frost, root duration 1.1 to 1.5 seconds to 1.25 to 1.65 seconds. So I think this is a big buff. Uh, I, I don't want to say it is just for pro play because even in solo queue you can take advantage of it. The thing is, in pro play, I guess Lissandra, most mid laners will build Merc Treads, so the duration was not that big before. It will not be as big now. But maybe before you build Merc Treads, maybe you know an engage by Lissandra and the extra duration might be what secures a kill. Maybe. Um, is this enough to make Lissandra viable even as a blind pick? I don't think so. I think Lissandra is always a counter pick to things like I don't know, Echo, LeBlanc, etc. So with LeBlanc changes and Lissandra buffs, maybe Lissandra will be picked more often. Um, I'm not sure if this is really the change that will make Lissandra be picked again, as a mainstay. Uh, but I mean, it just gives her a bit more to work with, a bit more CC to work with, and I think that's fine, uh, in the most part. Nunu, EAP ratio increased, so magic damage per hit um, plus from 10% AP to 15% AP. I think that's times three, right? Because there are three of them, or how many of them are there? Oh, wait. Maximum total magic damage, base damage is the same, but from 90% AP, you go to 135% AP. Um, so for tank Nunu, this does not really matter as much, if at all. But for AP Nunus, I think this is a massive, massive buff. Because I think you overall land all your E's once you hit your snowball. Um, so having an extra 45% AP even in the early game is massive. Um, I'm not sure if like what the point of this is. Like I'm trying to think, like, is there, well, let's actually just read Riot's explanation. AP Nunu is quite popular despite not being very strong. This patch we're giving some love to a well-liked off-build as Tank Nunu is performing just fine. The choice to buff Snowball Barrage here is to create some tension in AP Nunu's combat. Their ultimate NW Snowball already deal a lot of damage, but AP Nunu should be more than a burst mage. Require him to remain in close range to get maximum power out of buying AP should enrich the gameplay for them and their opponents. Um, I mean, people who were going AP Nunu before will keep on going now. People who didn't like the AP builds will attempt to build AP Nunu. They will not like it and go back to Tank Nunu. So this is whatever, man. Pike health growth 104 to 110, so slightly tankier. In the late game, W Ghost Quarter Dive cooldown 12 to 10 seconds to 12 to 8 seconds. This is the ability he maxes last, right? He maxes Q, then E, right? And then W. So this means that since he's a support, um, he will not be getting any buffs on his W cooldown until level 14, which is like half a second. And because of this, especially for pro play, supports generally do not even hit level 14 in pro play unless the game goes like 45 minutes or so. Um, so for pro play specifically, this doesn't really matter. Like, it only matters in really, really, really late game. This kind of the same because you need levels to get a lot of this value. Um, so I think this is more of like a solo queue buff because in solo queue, um, you know, Pike players generally, if they pop off, they just get a lot of levels anyway, and this can be really good. But for pro play, I think this doesn't matter at all. Um, well, that's fine, I guess. Oh my god, Rek'Sai, here we go. Yikes. So Rek'Sai has been on the top of like the jungle tier list for like half a year now. Finally gets nerfs. Wow. So passive Fury of whatever. 15 to 125 plus 2 to 12% maximum health, to 10 flat to 2 to 10% max health. Wow, this is a massive, massive nerf. Um, so the base the base nerf on the heal is massive for one, and the scaling is also not as massive, but it's quite big. Uh, so basically, they say that, you know what, Rek'Sai's passive heal is now a bit useless. They made Rek'Sai's heal be quite good with the buffs, and especially her bruiser builds. But now, what is this? Like, the base heal is like, okay, you can never go Eclipse anymore because your passive will be useless. You have to build Stride Breaker or whatever other item you want to build that has health, and even that uh, will not be enough because um, you get less health, less healing from your maximum health, which is not like a big decrease, but it is there. So that's one that's one thing. So Queen's Wrath, bonus physical damage, 34 to 50% of total AD to 30 to 50% of total AD. So her early game clear is getting nerfed by quite a lot, in my opinion. Um, W Burrow 15 to 30 to oh, that's the movement speed. Okay, 15 to 30 movement speed to 5 to 15. So she's even slower now at all stages of the game. Okay. W Unburrow 50 to 110 base damage to 50 to 190. Okay, so a lot of things to unpack here, but I will try to not go into much detail. Um, so now what they do is W is the skill you max last. So for for the biggest part of the game, this buff does not matter at all, and it's just nerfs from that point on. So her early game clear is hit heavily with the Q nerfs. Her early clear healing is also nerfed a lot because of this, and her movement speed early on is also nerfed a lot by 10 movement speed actually from this. So Rek'Sai's early clear will probably feel terrible now because there are three different nerfs. They're not like massive like individually, but when you add all of them together, they are quite massive. Um, the only compensation she gets is like late game with your W damage of all things, which is like who even cares about this, right? I mean, Rek'Sai is like an early to mid game pick with all of your mobility and sustain and strong like ganking potential. If you if you need this buff in the late game to be considered a viable champion and you have not already won by that point, you're doing it wrong. So this will not matter at all. So this overall is a big nerf to Rek'Sai, and this buff here does not matter at all in my opinion. Um, and overall, I think this is a good change because Rek'Sai was a freaking terror in jungle for so many patches now. So this is good. Renekton base stats, base magic resistance 32 to 28. So Renekton is a staple for pro play for a very long time now. And now if he's being blind picked, maybe there are situations where he can be counter picked by things like Gwen, Rumble, Akali, even or like Kennen, um, even Ord in some cases. Um, oh yeah, here they are. Gwen, Kennen, Rumble, etc. I think this is a good change because Renekton being so blind pickable, I do not think is healthy for the game. And now being able to counter pick it with things like those AP champions that I mentioned is a good thing. Syndra Q magic damage increased 70 to 210 to 75 to 215. So 5 damage on her Q, 5 base damage on her Q. This might help Syndra with her wave clear in uh, like every stage of the game, especially in the early game though. This might make Syndra's wave pushing slightly more reliable, meaning that better back timers or better roaming timers. Even like using less mana to clear waves. I'm not sure what the breakpoints are for Syndra to be wave clearing, and if those 5 extra damage actually help do this earlier. But I think this is a fine change, not anything massive, but there might be some situations where this can be considered crucial. Um, so I think this is overall a good change. Twitch are spray and pray, missile speed 4000 to 5000. Okay, nice, I guess. Zeri, base movement speed 335 to 330, so minus 5 ms. Classic. Um, okay, so for Twitch, okay, I'm not sure if this is very big, but okay. This can be good, can be a good nerf, but if players want to pick Zeri, then they will pick Zeri, and this doesn't really matter. It's just that, maybe there's like slightly less chase down potential now. Chasing down Zeri uh, is still not possible with your E. It's just a nerf to her mess so that she is not as obnoxious, especially in the early game when she chases down people. Rounding Soyman, total cost 3000 to 2700. Wow, so 300 gold less. This is insane. An insane buff to Rounding Soyman. And I'm pretty sure that pretty much everybody will build this now. Seeker's armor 15 to 20. Huh. So I guess with all those assassins in the mid lane running rampant and Talon, we can also go like bruiser items, etc. Building Seeker's armor guard early on, I think is a good thing for mages. I think it's more, as they say here, I think it's more, this change is more about bringing Seeker's Armor Guard more in line with things like Hex Drinker and Bramble Vest over anything else. So I think this is fine. Static save. Oh my god, what is this? What are they doing? Electroshock damage to minions 200 to 150. I really want to see how many changes static save has received. Now, what's the point of even building this item anymore? The whole point of static save is an item that, like the number thing, is help you wave clear, right? And secondly is to help you, do some more AoE damage in team fights, for example, or like when you like CS a minion wave, the poke from the static save proc might help you um, damage the enemy champion a bit, right? But the primary reason for the item to exist is wave clear. You nerf this so much to the point that does it even wave clear anymore? I'm sure it does, but champions like Vayne, who do not have innate wave clear, I think this is a great item that should be built on Vayne, right? Maybe Draven in some cases, like you get the point. But now, like they nerfed the item so that it does not help things like LeBlanc, right? But it does not help Vayne though. So why would you ever build this item anymore? Like for Vayne, why wouldn't you go for like Kraken Slayer now? Or like even like Guinsoo's to whatever Vayne goes now. I'm pretty sure LeBlanc will never build this item anymore, which is great. But Riot missed the point of this item when they when Riot brought it back. And I've said this a billion times now. that bringing static save. I said it before it even hit the servers that bringing static save back into the game would be a bad thing. Oh God, was I right? Haram changes, buffs to Briar, whatever. Okay, I'm not gonna read this or this or this or this or what the fuck is all this? Okay, whatever. Let's recap really quickly because yeah, Azir nerf, pro player will adjust to it and it will be fine. Briar, whatever, doesn't matter. Galio, good for specific team comps in pro play and counter picks. Great change. Same for Gangplank. Um, Jin might find some more situation where lethal is can happen, which is also a good change. LeBlanc changes will uh, with almost 100% certainty push her to pure AP builds now, like Ludens, etc. No more statics with LeBlanc, which is great. Thumbs up. You finally figured it out. Lee Sin getting a buff to his early game, especially early to mid game, I should say. Which I mean, I don't think he really needed it, but Ward's coming, so you have to have Lee Sin there. Lissandra is a fine buff, but not, you know, massive, more like placebo in my opinion. Nunu solo queue buff is, you know, lol. Pike, more of a solo queue buff than a pro play one. For solo queue, this is gonna be really good, but for pro play, it doesn't matter at all. Rek'Sai nerfs mostly for solo queue because he was not even picked in pro play anyway. Deserved. I think Rek'Sai will now drop by roughly 2%, like 2.5%. I think she was on like 53% for a long time. I think she will go to like slightly less than 51% now. Like these are massive changes. Um, Renekton, a slight nerf, which is fine. Syndra, a minimal buff, which is fine. Twitch is fine. Zer is fine. The item changes are all great. So I think overall it's a very good patch. Again, it's a world's patch, so a lot of these changes here were so that champions can be picked in pro play. But I think overall it's a healthy patch, maybe one of the best patches Riot has done, despite it being quite small. Like not many big changes happening, but the fact that it removes LeBlanc static save from the meta is great. And maybe the reintroduction of Gangplank and Galio and Lee Sin in pro play would be big. So I cannot wait for Worlds. Begins in like half a month, I think. I cannot wait for Worlds. I hope we have uh, a great tournament. I hope we see many exciting picks. And until then, take care. Bye.